that person is particularly passionate about. And these sessions then give you an opportunity to extend your knowledge about topics like peer mentorship that you might be interested in, and something that you might be keen to go and try in your own field of work. And we have an Auxin session on the last Tuesday of every month during term time. So how the session works then is there will be a presentation of about 20 minutes, and then there will be question and discussion time for another 20 minutes. You've also received 2 articles, just so that you can see what is there in terms of research that has been done and publications about it. If you could then just complete the feedback form at the end also before you leave, so that we can know exactly how we could improve sessions to follow after this one, or what actually worked for you. All right, so without further ado then, I would like to just introduce Ms. Shona Lombard, who is from the Faculty of Arts and Social Sciences. She has been lecturing full-time on the extended degree program in that faculty since 2011. And across the years, her duties there have included teaching and or coordinating on 3 of the support modules in that EDP, and they are Introduction to the Humanities 178 and 188, and Texts in the Humanities 113 and 143. And then of particular importance to the session today, and her topic is that in 2015 she launched the mentor program on the EDP, of which she is still the coordinator. I would also like to welcome Mrs. Russia Davis, who was a mentor in 2016 and a super mentor in 2017, and Shona will speak more about what those terms mean. And at the moment she works for Community Keepers as an office manager at the P.C. Peterson Primary School in Calmore. I got it right. I got it straight. Okay, great. So welcome to you too, and thank you for coming to share your experience and to just support Shona as well in this. Shona, so over to you. Thank you very much.
Yes, good afternoon everyone, and thank you for this opportunity to talk about the EDP mentor program, something that's very close to my heart. The only problem I have and I foresee is that I'm going to run out of time, because I can literally talk about this for hours. There's so many stories to share and so much information to convey to you, but I'll try my best to stick to the time frame. Yes, as you can see, these are reflections on the first 5 years. I can't believe we're already into the 5th year of this mentor program. And you may have been wondering about the quote right at the top, the fruits of the spirit mixed with street smarts. That's actually part of a reflection of one of our mentors that came when she did the reflection form last year, to answer the question, what are the characteristics that a mentor should have? This was her answer, but I'll get back to that a little bit later towards the end of my talk. Here's the inky in. Okay, thanks. So as we've mentioned, this program was launched in 2015, April of 2015 we started. And we had 23 mentors to start with, all senior EDP students, 115 first years. And this student here right in the middle, Annika Bestisch, is actually the initiator or the instigator. She came to me and said, I want to help first years, what can I do? What is there available? What structure is available? And in 2014 we gave it a bit of a trial. She attended a few of the tutoring Afrikaans tutor groups and talked with the first years. And then in 2015 she walked into my office one day and said, so wanneer gaan ons nou begin met hierdie ding? When are we going to start? So yeah, and we also made some headlines. our story made the university's website. And I think it was also, there was also an article by Lynn Moses in the Ekerstad Nes and also the Tigerburger, or Tijgerburger, because that's the area where Annika lives. And I remember her telling me her mum went out and collected about 15 Tijgerburgers to hand out to the rest of the family. In 2016, we had 24 mentors, five of them super mentors. So that was the first year that we had super mentors, basically a head mentor. Someone who's already done the mentoring, and then the next year they can move up to being a head mentor or a super mentor who coaches a few mentors. As you can see, in 2016 we had only 79 first years. So that was a bit of a problem because I had 38 volunteers. So what we also tried to do in 2016 was to introduce subject facilitators. I tried to accommodate all the volunteers. And we started that. But one of the first lessons we learned is if someone volunteers to do mentoring, do not ask them to do something else. It was a very frustrating process. They were all eager to help and to do it, but I remember a few of them coming back the next year and asking, please can I be a mentor in 2017? So one of the lessons learned already. In 2017, 22 mentors and 5 super mentors and 115 first years. That's more or less the number of first years that we have. On the EDP, we have place for 100, but we usually exceeded by a few numbers. Last year, 27 mentors and 9 super mentors, also 115 first years. And this year, we don't have a year-end function photo yet, but this is the training and a few other photos. We have 25 mentors and 8 super mentors. And I just realized when I was preparing this PowerPoint, we've passed the 100 mark. We've had more than 100 mentors already on this program, which for us is a huge accomplishment. This is our motto that we have adopted. We rise by lifting others. And for me, this is very apt because it not only illustrates that the mentees themselves get uplifted in the process, but the mentors as well. Something happens to them as well. They also grow and develop in the process. Now, you may be asking, why a specific EDP mentor program? And if we look at these statistics that have been provided by Marie Kirstner from the Division for Information Governance, I asked her to give me the numbers of first generation EDP students over the past 2 years. And as you can see, in 2018, 87 out of 115 first years on the EDP were first generation students. And of those 87, almost 60 of them were PSO students, which means they were not in a university residence where that extra support would have been available. And it's basically the same story this year. Out of 111, we have 88 first generation students, and of those 88, 55 of them are also PSO students. And I actually also included every year, I still send out an evaluation form at the end of every single year, and that's the most valuable instrument to use and to get the feedback from the mentees and the mentors. And in last year, I included this question in the 2018 evaluation form for the mentees, the first years. And I asked them whether they thought that this mentor program served a specific purpose and fulfills a different need than the RES or PSO mentor program. And as you can see, the answer was an overwhelmingly yes. As with any study, in this study of peer mentoring, we need a theoretical underpinning. And the theoretical underpinning here is the experiential learning theory of David Kolb, which was influenced by and based on the work of John Dewey, Kurt Lewin, Jean Piaget, and Vygotsky is also referred to in his work, which focuses on learning as an experience. Experience is the source of all learning and development. And it's also learning away from the exclusivity of the classroom, learning as a social process. And it focuses more on development rather than performance or outcomes which can be measured. The focus is more on the process and the development that takes place. This illustration can give us, in a nutshell, basically what the whole theory is all about. I don't want to go into too much detail. But Kolb identifies 4 stages of learning in the experiential learning theory. the concrete experience, reflective observation, abstract conceptualization, and active experimentation. But it's important to note that these 4 stages are not part of a circle. It's rather a cycle. So there's no particular stage where you have to start the learning process and where you have to end it. It's a cycle, so the learner can enter this learning process at any stage. And then he also goes further to say and to identify 4 different learning styles that correlate with these 4 different stages of learning. But the 4 different learning styles are based on the fact that he indicates every individual has preferred ways of dealing with new knowledge and new tasks. So as soon as you have a new knowledge situation, you have a choice of how you perceive it, how you emotionally respond to it, whether you think or feel about it. And then you also have a choice as to how you process the new learning environment or learning task, how you approach it, whether you prefer to do it or just watch at first. And based on these differences, he postulated that there are 4 different learning styles. If you are a learner who likes to feel and watch, you have a diverging learner style. Converging style of learning if you prefer to think and do. Assimilating if you are a thinker and a watcher. And accommodating if you prefer to feel and do. So why is this important? We needed the structure to have a look at if the mentoring program can be seen as an experiential learning process. How can we look for evidence to support the fact that this has been successful? And if we can find evidence that the mentoring program has accommodated all 4 of those stages and those 4 learning styles, then we can conclude that it has been successful. So to summarize, learning is a process where knowledge is created through the transformation of experience, and learning becomes the vehicle for human development via interactions between individuals and society. So learning is not merely an internal process, it's a social process. And in his book, his very famous first book, Kolb also articulates this by referring to Vygotsky, the social constructivist, to his zone of proximal development. And I wanted to show you this because for me, the ZPD is basically peer mentoring. I don't know if you're familiar with this. But it basically indicates that that zone of proximal development is the level between the things that a learner can do on his or her own and the things that they cannot yet do. And with the help of adult guidance or in collaboration with more capable peers or more knowledgeable others, they can move from the one level to the next. And that's the zone of proximal development. So in essence, peer mentoring is ZPD. And towards defining what peer mentoring is, we need to find a model for it. And we can start with a very acclaimed model that Kathy Cram established in 1983, which is a dual functioning model, where she focuses on mentoring as having 2 functions, career developmental function as well as a psychosocial support function. Obviously, her model was applicable to the workplace and based on hierarchical mentoring. And later on in her work, she also started focusing on peer mentoring. But in his book, that I also mentioned in my blurb, and this is a very useful tool to have, Peter J. Collier also uses Kathy Cram's model to describe the functions of mentoring. But he says for the case of peer mentoring in students at university and in higher education, we can say that the career development function in Cram's model takes the form of mentors providing help to students who are trying to complete their college degree. So in his book, he uses those 2 functions as the focus, and he summarizes what peer mentoring can accomplish through the career function in higher education. Peer mentoring increases mentees' intentions to stay at university and graduate, and it also promotes their academic success at university. So basically, in one word, retention. And then the psychosocial support function of mentoring in higher education. Peer mentoring helps with the transitioning of students, that adjustment from university to from high school to university. It also affirms the mentees' beliefs that they can succeed as students. And what better way to do that than to provide them with a role model who's been there and done it already. And peer mentoring also provides mentees with safe allies for sharing personal and university concerns, and it is particularly effective at promoting university success for students of colour and other underrepresented student groups. If I have time, which I doubt, but I would like to show you a video that was sent to me by Finney. He was one of our trailblazers right in the beginning in 2015, and he particularly echoes what has been said here in his video. And then the last one, peer mentors also benefit from supporting mentees. So from now on, for the sake of clarity, whenever we refer to the career function of mentoring, it will be indicated in blue, and the psychosocial function will be indicated in green. And more specifically, we're also going to pay attention to that very last one at the bottom, but it's actually very important, how the peer mentors benefit from supporting the mentees. One of the articles that you have received is by Crisp and Cruz from 2009, and I just wanted to mention this as well because they did this critical review of the literature between 1990 and 2007 in an effort to redefine mentoring and also redefine the characteristics, etc. And in the end, they ended up with a theoretical framework for a mentoring model. And they identified 4 domains as opposed to Cram's 2 dual function model. The psychological and emotional support, goal setting and career path, academic subject knowledge support, and the existence of a role model. And this is their effort to devise a particular model for university mentoring. But I found that 2 of those can actually fit into the career function, the 2 indicated in blue, and the other 2 can actually also fit into Cram's psychosocial function of mentoring. So to get to a definition, peer mentoring describes a relationship where a more experienced student helps a less experienced student to improve overall academic performance, provides advice, support, and knowledge to the mentee. The other article that you received is by Terrian and Leonard, and in 2007 they actually reviewed 26 journals and 54 articles within those journals. And it's structured on Cram's dual functioning for mentoring as well. And they had a look, they tried to establish a taxonomy of the characteristics of student peer mentors in higher education. Unfortunately, I only came about this article late in 2015, but it's actually, if anyone asked me what they should read, I would indicate that this is a very good place to start. They end up identifying prerequisites for mentoring. And 2 of them are extremely important. And the first one is the ability and the willingness to commit. And I have found that myself. I've actually also changed the way that I recruit the mentors. Since 2015, we've done a few things differently. So that was actually very important, and I can actually attest to that being an important prerequisite. And the second one is university experience. There has to be an experience that they can share with the mentees. And that's very important. Gender and race, it actually turned out to be not so conclusive whether that was important. And academic achievement also, not as important. One would think or tend to think that the stronger students should be mentors, the stronger students should be mentors. But actually, if you think about it, a mentor that has failed 1 or 2 modules and subsequently passed those modules can offer more motivation to a struggling first year, and they will feel less intimidated by that mentor than someone who's always received high grades. And the 5th one, previous mentoring, is also not as important. Looking at the dual functioning of mentoring, using Cram's model, the career-related functions that Terry and Leonard identified in this article, the 2 most important abilities is they have to study the same program, and self-enhancement motivation. That's on the part of the mentor. Regarding the psychosocial function of mentoring, Terry and Leonard identified 8 abilities, and the importance are in descending order. So the most important is communication skills. Supportiveness, trustworthiness, interdependent attitude towards mentoring. The mentor should be prepared to learn from the mentees as well. Empathy, personality match, not as important, and enthusiasm and flexibility. So yeah, our training for this mentor program is the responsibility and under the guidance of Dr. Gillian Arendse. When we started in 2015, he was the head for the Center of Mentor, Tutor and Leadership Development, and he's been with us ever since, guiding and helping us along the way. And his training is basically focused on 7 habits of successful students, and the mentors have to incorporate those habits in their sessions. And recently he also devised an acronym to make it easier to remember the most essential parts of being a mentor. You have to motivate, you have to share experience, you're a nurturer, you're also a talent optimizer, you have to guide your mentees towards reaching their potential, and you also refer. You're not a trained psychologist or a tutor, you are a mentor. So when the need arises, you have to know where to refer and how to refer. From this year, I try to do every year we try to do something new. It just happens that we do something new. The new thing this year is we've extended our training. Almarie Kruger is also on board from the CSCD. And Monica de Toy also did a session for our mentors and enabling empathy. And the basic structure is there's a coordinator right at the top, that would be me, and I have my super mentors. They have to report to me directly. They are the head mentors, if you will, someone who's been a mentor already. And they coach the mentors, and then every mentor have a few first years as mentees. The number here says 6 to 8. Fortunately, we have so many volunteers that I can actually make the group smaller. So the average group size at the moment is about 4 to 6 mentees. It's compulsory for the first semester. Another change. We start earlier now. We start in February already. And it's only for the first semester. It's 1 session per week, 1 hour per week that they have to meet with their mentees. The mentor groups are 4 to 6. The groupings is done by me according to the BA program. I look at that, and if that is not compatible, then at least they have to have 1 main subject in common with their mentors. On our program, the first years only have 2 mainstream subjects. They have support modules, and then they have 2 mainstream subjects at first year level. And then it's my job to try and figure out if the mentor also had that subject at a first year level, and to try and make it, so they can at least have something in common with their mentor. You can appreciate the fact they may be on the same program, but they're not necessarily chose the same subject. So that's the main thing. And then the super mentors coach the mentors, and each super mentor has a forum post on the Sun, and we have a Sunland page. That's also one of the new things that I tried from 2017 onwards. And our Sunland page is basically where I post everything that they need, notes that they can use in their sessions, all the PowerPoints, everything that you want them to have a look at, as well as communicating via the Sunlearn email. And then every single super mentor also has a group forum that's only open to them and their mentors. So no one else, it's restricted, no one else can enter that forum discussion group. And there the mentors have to post, every week they have to post on their session that they had that week. So that's our way of tracking and monitoring. So they have to post what they did, who was absent, who was not there, post a group selfie. I have a lot of group selfies on that forum, and just tell us what they did and what happened and how everything went. And then I also have WhatsApp groups, one for super mentors and one for mentors, and I found that works very well. And I've never been troubled by receiving WhatsApps late at night or whatever. If anything, I'm the one who usually starts a discussion on the WhatsApp group. And every year I also challenge them to try and do something, some form of giving back to the community. These are just 2 examples. One year they had a dog walking at the SPCA, and last year a few of the mentors volunteered to go to Lukhof High School to speak to the grade 11s during assembly. I also received funding in 2015 to look into the mentor program from Finland. And yeah, the two basic sub-questions were also focusing on those two functions of mental program, trying to find evidence that those two functions, the career-related one and the psychosocial, had been was performed and had been accommodated, and also looking into what the mentors gained. So quantitative and qualitative data, I think I have to skip a few of these so that we can get to something else. But so if you want me to elaborate on this more later on, you're welcome to. But some quantitative data was gained through the forms that we asked, the evaluation forms that we asked the mentees to complete. They were given 6 questions or statements where they had to comment by choosing on a Likert scale one of those 5 comments: disagree, strongly disagree, agree to an extent, agree fully, and neutral. And based on this, I made a summary over the last 4 years. The green indicates this is a statement relating to the psychosocial function of mentoring. I got to know my EDP classmates better, and as you can see, this is only the agreement percentage that I've indicated here. Across the years, it has always been very high, even almost reaching 90% agreement in 2017. The second one relates to the career function of mentoring. Once again, as you can see, the agreement percentage is, also high, in the high 70s and 80s, almost reaching 80. The third one is also a green one, psychosocial function of mentoring, and once again, also very high. The fourth one, a blue one again, the career-related function of mentoring, that this program contributed to the increased awareness of all the academic support that's available. And here you can also see that the agreement percentage is even into the 90s last year. The fifth one is also a career-related function. The program helped me to be a more responsible student, to take control of my studies. And if we can believe them, they all say that they agree fully here almost. It's a very high percentage of agreement. And then the last one, green one, psychosocial. This program helped me to handle my personal and emotional problems better. You can see here, interestingly enough, that the majority of the agreement percentages are rather low. And interestingly enough, for this question, the neutral option was the one that the majority of students year upon year chose, which sort of suggests to me that they are reluctant to comment on their personal and emotional problems. And then we also got a lot of qualitative data from focus group discussions, useful criticism as well. And we always use that to change the program, to make adjustments, to move forward. And if you have a mentor group and you want to get proper feedback, I would suggest that if funds allow and time allow you, that you actually do have focus group discussions. You learn a lot from those. And we also found some evidence to indicate that both those functions, the career and the psychosocial function, once again, was met with a mentor program, as indicated there. Also open-ended questions in the evaluation form where they answered. There's also some support and evidence to suggest that both those functions, the career and the psychosocial, were addressed. And then if you go back to those 4 learning stages, remember we said if the mentor program is effective as an experiential learning process, then we need to find evidence that all 4 stages and learning styles have been accommodated. And just a few indications that we have found evidence of that. Concrete experience. Mentor sessions were used as a forum to express my frustrations around the EDP, etc. Reflective observation. She made me realize how awesome my degree is, what I can do with it. Just one example. Abstract conceptualization. It gave me a guide to what I can expect in my future studies. An active experimentation het my gehelp om beter methodes te kry om te studeer, actually applying new study methods, etc. So then we move on to the mentors. How do the mentors benefit? And the question is, are we providing enough opportunities for the mentors to develop the skills and the competencies that they need to attain those graduate attributes that we strive for all our graduates to have at Stellenbosch University? And this is a co-curriculum competency framework that I'm fortunate enough to have, because I'm working with Ruth Andrews and colleagues at the co-curricular office towards getting accreditation for the program, and they have constructed this rather beautiful framework. So on the road towards attaining those attributes, they focused on what are the skills that need to be developed. And underlying those skills, what are the competencies that needs to be developed and focused upon. And when I look at the feedback that we get from the mentors, it's obvious that specifically these two skill sets, the personal skills and the people skills, and their underlying competencies, have been developed particularly in the mentorship. And I can show you a few snapshots. I hope it's not too small. But this is from, I've sent out Google Forms since 2017 for the reflections and the evaluations of the mentees and the mentors. And this one is just a snapshot from some of the feedback that I got in, I think it was last year's mentor reflection. And the question was, indicate to us how your participation in this program has influenced you. And you can see there are quite a few indications of taken responsibility, personal growth. This one is of particularly importance to me. It has improved my ability to put aside my unconscious biases and prejudices, and it helped me to understand group dynamics. My baie goed gehelp. Ek het baie by my mentees geleer against social skills, people skills, social skills. I became more responsible, a better layer, leadership skills, more patience. Listening skills is one of those that pop up regularly when they comment on how they've benefited. It also helped me to prioritize, to plan with research skills, etc., etc. There's another example. So basically, if we look through it, you'll see that it's basically personal skills as well as people skills that they refer to. From the experience of being a mentor, what have you found to be your biggest personal attribute? And there you also see a lot of those personal and people skills being mentioned. But once again, this third entry is of particular importance to me, and I'd like to share that with you. She says, or he says, I'm not sure, I always thought of myself as not being judgmental of anyone's life choices and beliefs, but having 3 girls from 3 different backgrounds in her mentor group really put that to the test. My one mentee confessed to me that she thinks she may be homophobic, which was such a shock because I don't associate with people who don't believe in equality. But I still found myself drawn to her and with the same willingness to help her and to listen to her before she expressed feelings and her ideas. And for me, I mean, you can't teach that in a classroom from a textbook. It's only through experience that someone can learn and grow like this. And here we get to that quote right at the beginning. One of the questions in that reflection form is also, what characteristics should a mentor have? And when I looked at it the first time, this very top one caught my eye. The fruits of the spirit mixed with street smarts. And I'm so glad that you actually spell spirit with a small s, because it doesn't necessarily have to refer to biblical fruits of the spirits. I think all of us, regardless of our religious beliefs or non-religious beliefs, can identify with the positive characteristics of the human spirit. And I think if you read the rest of these entries, you'll see openness, trustworthiness, empathy, passion, friendliness, honesty, love of people. They all actually refer to positive characteristics of the human spirit. So in essence, she's actually summarized the rest of the comments without even knowing it, because they obviously can't see what the others responded, how they responded. And then regarding the street smarts bit, to me that is an indication of being able to handle difficult situations and challenging situations, because you do come upon those in your mentoring, and I'm sure Russia will also be able to attest to that. And the example that I just shared with you about the mentee that was homophobic, that also it's you develop street smarts through dealing with those situations. So yeah, I think, and even if a mentor does not possess these qualities when they start with the mentoring, I'm pretty sure once they've finished with it, they have the fruits of the spirit and street smarts. I have a few, I don't know how we're going time-wise. Not well, okay. Because I do have some videos and the sound, a voice note that Emma sent all the way from South Korea. But Russia's also here, so I think we should give her a chance first to speak, and then if we still have time, we can go back to those. I think jy staan hier want hulle is besig om 'n podcast te maak. Kom staan nie sodat ons jou ook op die podcast kan.
Good afternoon, everyone. I think starting with the mentor program back in 2016 was very fruitful. Even now, being invited to this occasion today, I didn't think of it when I did it at first that it would actually help me in my career as well. So that's something that only came afterwards. But for us as social work students, we always wanted to know how can we help. We always want to lend a hand. So when it came up to asking who wants to be mentors, of course we were the first that were volunteering for it. And at first, to be honest, we didn't know what we were doing. We were nervous, and like I was studying full time, I had a job full time, and I was raising my son. So I was like, no, there's not going to be time to do this. But it actually slots in so well. I had a group of amazing mentees. They relied on me mostly at first for understanding campus. And then afterwards, when it got near to exam time, now is it more academic type of questions, even though I wasn't a tutor, just light hints of what to study, not to party too hard during exams. So just light tips that they could take from you. And then afterwards, even still today, I'm still in touch with two of my mentees because they are going to graduate this year, and they are still wanting to know, just because I'm out of the program now and I've graduated, and they still think of me as their mentor after all this time. They begged me, please, we won't bother you that much, but if we do have a question. So I think being a mentor helped me to be open. It really stretched myself to what I am able to do with my time and how to help others as well. And I must say I had an amazing group of mentees, where for my other friend who was also a mentee, she did not have that great a time. So she had one of those groups where the percent said no, they didn't feel that the mentor program helped them at all. But I think what Shona should also do is to send that back a few years after, because Inga got, last year she got a Facebook message from the very girl who made her tear out her hair, thanking her actually for her time. So and for what she then invested in them at the time. She said specifically, I didn't know what I had in you at the time, and I'm so sorry for being so mean, and I still wish that you are able to help me even now. So they may not know that we are that of much of an asset to them at the time. They may feel that, oh, it's obligated, I don't want to be here for an hour. But after a while, they do start to realize that we're only there to help them, and that we're only there because it's something that's open to us, and it's something that we really want to do. And most of my mentees became mentors afterwards as well. And my one mentee asked me, are you sure I should become a mentor? I don't know if I have the qualities like you. And I told her, but I also didn't think I had the qualities to be a mentor, but you guys helped me to realize that I can be something. So it was a mutual learning experience really from both sides. And at the end of the day, lifelong friendships, as they are still, some of them are still in touch with me and still want to know that, can you help us with this or that, and they are still in touch with their mentors. So it's that giving back, and still being able to just be there for someone. And I think just giving up your time, 1 hour a week, is definitely not much to ask someone, because they told me that they don't know how I can study full-time and work full-time and then still sit here with them for an hour. And I told them, you can do anything if you put your mind to it. Thank you.
you take
Will you
over now.
last slide?
No, I think she said it all. If you want to continue.
Okay, okay. Well, thank you very much, Shona, for a very thought-provoking and a very passionate overview of your peer mentorship program. And I'm sure it's been inspirational to a lot of people here as well. And thank you, Russia, also for being here and for contributing your experience. It just also brings it to life for all of us. So thank you. Are there any questions? Any comments?
How much of that hour is actually academic mentoring versus just sitting and chatting?
I can't
Because
answer.
I would think an hour a week and not necessarily teaching, they say it's sort of a waste of time. I don't know, that's the wrong opinion.
I'm glad you asked that question because we make a point of telling our mentors you are not a tutor. So you're not there to teach, you are there to share your experience. And I found in the literature as well, sometimes you come across an article and it says mentoring, and when you start reading you realize they're actually talking about what I would define as tutoring. And I actually also found a nice online video which illustrates the differences so well. Tutoring for me is when you are part of a specific discipline or program or module and you have to teach them in a venue that is academic, and there's also assessment involved, etc., etc. Our program is not, obviously because it's part of an academic program, there will be academic discussions, but it's not teaching per se. So, and for us, it's the support that they offer. More than anything else, because as I've indicated, the majority of our students don't have the family structure, because they're first generation students of anyone in the family understanding what they're going through, and nor are they in a university residence. So this is just basically to support them, to make them feel safe at first, that they have someone who understands what they're going through, rather than spending time on academics. It's not a tutoring session. We also encourage them to go to wherever they're pleased to go to the botanical gardens, except of course their personal spaces, that's off bounds. But botanical gardens, or sit somewhere on campus so that the mentees also get to know the campus itself. So I don't know if you also want to respond to that.
More like we also see, we go with where the mentees are at.
Taking.
So before exams it would be, just support, and this is going on at home, because I was also a BSO student and you don't have the things that the other students have in the RES. So you don't have the roommate, you don't have the mentor there. So it was really more support at first. But obviously, as it got to exam time, they did have more type of exam questions. Not to say what should I study, but more like how can I just relieve my stress and anxiety, because that type of questions more to exam time. So it's just going with the flow of your mentees. If this is what's on their mind, then that's where you go, because you can come in with your own agenda, but if that's not where they are at, they're not going to listen to you anyway. So we just mostly went with what the mentees were feeling.
What the need was.
At that time.
And I remember in one of the focus group discussions, I think you were part of that group anyway, but one of the mentors actually mentioned that when she was prepared, let's say, to talk about time management or whatever, and when they got there, one of the mentees had a bit of trauma. I think a boyfriend just dropped her or something. So they spent the rest of that session comforting her and talking to her and doing whatever they could to help her. You can always talk about time management later. So that's also a difference between this and tutoring. Tutoring, you have to focus on this subject this week in the tutoring session. So this is where you have to be flexible as well, and listen to the needs of your mentees.
Thank you very much, Shona. I'm quite impressed, and to begin with a very pragmatic question. What did you do with the total funding? What did you use it for?
That was basically used for the focus groups to also have assistance that helped me with evaluation forms, getting the data and everything, and getting someone to facilitate the focus groups, getting someone to transcribe the focus, the recordings of the focus groups and stuff like that. Yeah. And it was very helpful, may I add.
Sure. Have you looked at what's the impact of this mentor program on actual academic performance? Did marks improve over time? Did dropout rates fall? Have you looked at that type of that?
That's an interesting question, and the problem with that is always it's extremely difficult to determine causality between a mentor program and better grades. I actually also read an article over the weekend from 2014. It was a UK study. I think it was 2 universities in London. The one had a mentor program, the other one did not. And they sort of tried to determine whether the one group fared better than the other one because of the mentor program. And I specifically remember in the conclusion they said it is notoriously difficult to objectively measure peer mentoring. And what they actually also mentioned, the problem is with finding a control group where you can eliminate all the variables that can play a role. And for me, the qualitative data and the mentees and mentors themselves stating that they've benefited, to me that means more than actually looking at the grades, because I think there's so many variables at play. And I remember in that particular study, I think it's Collins et al., I'm not sure I think the first surname was Collins. They mentioned that the variability of the peer mentor's commitment was the biggest issue for them. So there's so many variables at play. To make that direct link between better grades and a mentorship program. And also when you compare to the mainstream, we're not comparing apples to oranges. But that's a whole new story. Bruce Mackenzie from CPUT did a study once where he actually compared the EDP students in their final year. He compared their grades to their peers on the mainstream. Those students were their matric results were only about 10% higher than the EDP students. So he only compared the EDP students to that group on the mainstream because he felt that was fair. That was comparing apples to apples. So there's so many, we can conclude and say because of this program, even though there is this program, the retention rate's still not high compared to the mainstream or whatever, but for me that's unfair. I'd be happy to see if there is something that one can do. I don't know, I think Auxin has a sort of system in place where he looks at the university institution-wide program. But like I said, that particular study also, even though they had a perfect control group, so to speak, they still couldn't prove causality between the mentor program and the students' grades for retention.
Like with any kind of writing support or writing program as well, it's very difficult to say if students' writing has improved as a result of that program or whether, because there's so many other variables that come into play as well. Any other questions? Martha?
On that point, and the little point she asked what she met early, that she did a PhD study on our mentoring program in the residency's own environment. And she looked only at the adjustment. So she used a standardized instrument to measure the adjustment to university of the students who participate in the peer mentoring program. And then she had a control group of students who only participate during the welcoming period, but not the rest of the year. So she had a kind of an experimental and a control group. And statistically, there was no significant difference in the adjustment. But her qualitative study that she followed onward certainly pointed to many of the benefits that you found in your study. I looked at some of your qualitative remarks, and they were very much echoed in the study. And also the qualities in this article that were identified that's important for a mentorship program to work, the qualities that peer mentors need to have. So I think, we are building up a body of evidence now of the importance of
a practical question. The attendance. I asked my students also at the It's very hard for you to track who's there, who isn't there. How do you get the students to commit to attend these programs? You said it's compulsory, but what is the consequences for the ones not attending? Because I asked this morning and I was quite shocked from my students that yes, they have registered for a mentor, but then they don't pitch. But they made the appointment, and then I suddenly realized today that many of them don't attend. So you don't want a punitive approach. What do you do with those? What is the attendance? Is it 100% attendance? What do you do with those that do not attend?
Are you referring to that online where they can ask for a mentor?
We have our own mentors that are EDP senior students that log on to that.
Okay.
But they provide EDP
Students with mentoring. Okay.
So they just use that platform that they
Still EDP to EDP. Yeah, I think on that point, that is what we would call an informal mentor program. I found in the literature where the mentors or the mentees decide for themselves, I need someone to help me. In our case, you have been appointed a mentor, which is called a formal mentor program. But you are right, we call it compulsory, and we've always said that it is compulsory, but I've never actually, don't tell them, but I've never actually used those attendance marks as like, part of my text and humanities course marks or whatever, because I don't want to do that. But I think what we try to get them is to realize that this is useful. So before the mentor program starts, I have 2 weeks where I meet with them in one of my tutorials for text, and I talk to the whole group and I introduce them to the program and to the structure, and I show them examples of previous mentees and how they have benefited. And obviously the mentors keep track. At the moment, the monitoring and tracking is on the Sunlearn forum groups. But the thing is, if a mentor, if a mentee actually wants to not take part in any of the mentoring activities, we actually require of them to write us a formal letter and say, I choose not to be part of this. Because it's better not to have that person in a group, and I think you can also comment on this, Rasha, than to have someone there who doesn't want to be there and negatively influence the rest of the group.
So I was just thinking also, if you've got a record of bad class attendance, these 3 or 4 students that do not attend classes regularly.
Yeah.
Then I wonder if there isn't a correlation with not even
Exactly, yeah. That's what happens.
Those are the guys.
Yeah, exactly. When my mentors tell me, or the super mentors tell me, someone is having problem with this particular mentee, I immediately go to the class records and I can see that they're also not attending the classes. So it's usually the same culprits, so to speak.